So you already heard from John, you are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teachings. And you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. But I often like to add to that, but first it'll piss you off. I remember early in my recovery, my sponsor said to me, "You're lying." And I said, "How do you know?" And he said, "Your lips are moving." In the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill wrote, "Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves." And NA says rigorous honesty is the most important tool we have in learning to live for today. Although honesty is difficult to practice, it is most rewarding. Honesty is the antidote to our diseased thinking. I don't know if you're aware, but addiction cannot survive without lies. And recovery begins when we get honest. If you think about it, our first admission is a form of honesty. When we recognize and are willing to say, call ourselves, at least in that component of our lives, that we are addicted to something. So I don't know, but I believe that many of us lied to our employers about why we weren't in work, or we got a friend to call us in sick. We lied to our families, and quite honestly, I think most of us, if not all of us, lied to ourselves. It's difficult to come to self-honesty since we've practiced self-deception and rationalization and justification and minimalization. But until we get honest with ourselves, we're never get honest with someone else. How many of us grew up in families where secrets were the norm? I see some heads going up and down. Don't talk. Don't trust. Don't feel. Growing up, I was often anxious and upset, and my mother would always say to me, "Tommy, just make your mind a void." It's no wonder many of us use substances and behaviors to numb our feelings. I learned very quickly how it was that I could make my mind a void. And I don't know, but how many of us end up dressing up our outsides so that we can hide what's going on inside? You know, if we look good outside, if we look Gucci on the outside, then maybe we're going to be okay and nobody's going to recognize what's going on inside. You know, if we get too hung up on our outside appearances, we lose rigorous honesty that's required in recovery. See, honesty is about sincerity and integrity. It's a virtue. Truth is about facts. Honesty is subjective, but truth is objective. It either is or it isn't. And so, sometimes we struggle with this. And so we might say something like, well, I was out drinking. That's true. But if we leave it there, maybe it's not quite honest. Maybe, well, I was out drinking and I had one drink. Well, that's true, but it may not be honest. Because maybe I was out drinking and I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drinks. But we didn't say that, did we? So one part may be true, but until we get honest about what's really happening, we're not fooling everybody else. We're fooling ourselves. So I think one way that I like to define integrity is when our outsides match our insides. I mean, just imagine that, when you are as true inside as you are at the appearance that we want to give to everybody else. Honesty brings us closer to those around you. The part that truly scares us is that rigorous honesty requires vulnerability. And many of us just don't like vulnerability. Part of honesty is letting go of the fantasy and living life on life's terms. And I hate to tell you, but most of our addictions end up in some way, shape, or form keeping us in this world of fantasy rather than this world of being true. Honesty feels good those of us who have started to become honest, it really feels pretty good. It's easier living in the truth than it is living in the lies. I mean, how many of us struggle after a while to think, God, I don't remember what it is that I said, and now I've got to say something again, and we get caught up in our own lies. And again, when our lips are moving, we're not telling the truth. How many of you are familiar with the recent author, Brene Brown? I don't know how recent, but she's certainly contemporary. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful person. And I like one of her quotes that says, vulnerability isn't good or bad. It's not what we call a dark emotion, nor is it always light, positive experience. Vulnerability is the core of all emotions and feelings. To feel is to be vulnerable. To believe vulnerability is a weakness is to believe that feeling is a weakness. To foreclose on our emotional life out of fear that costs will be too high is to walk away from the very thing that gives purpose and meaning to life. Yeah, so vulnerability is not a weakness, although many, many of us think it was. We were raised not to show emotions. We were told don't tell the truth about ourselves. Why wouldn't we want to tell the truth about ourselves? Because if we did, others might not what? They might not like us. And so we're afraid to tell the truth, and so we make up stories, we embellish things, we stretch things a little bigger than they were, you know, the old fish story, but we do it with other things because we think who we really are is not enough. See, to love is to be vulnerable. And that involves risk. Think about it. There's no way that we can ever have love without having risk, because there's always that chance that something would go wrong, that we would lose someone. So many of us end up loving from a distance, or many of us end up blowing up relationships out of fear that the other person will blow it up, and so it's better if we do it than to have the feeling of them doing it. But even embracing joy takes vulnerability. Now, what do I mean by that? How many of us don't want to get too happy because it might be taken away? You know, that waiting for the other shoe to drop. Yeah, and so I don't want to get too happy. I remember someone saying that, you know, if we never set any goals that are major, we'll never be disappointed. But how do we go through life like that? When we're vulnerable, when we ask for help. But going it alone, how was that working for us? Not so well. We all tried going it alone, didn't we? We all tried to figure this out by ourselves. I'll be able to do this. Just give me another chance. But as long as we try to do it alone, it's not working. So, a while back, I joined a gym. I signed a whole year's contract for that gym. Every month, I had to make this payment, whether I showed up or not. And the problem was I didn't know what I was doing and I was out of shape. But I didn't want other people to see me and judge me. See, I never hung out in a gym. And so the idea of going in there and feeling awkward was just enough that I made a year's worth of payments and I never stood in there one time. I told that story at church one day, and afterwards everybody came up and said, hey, I'll take you to church. I'll take you to the gym. I'll take you to the gym. And I'm like, oh, no. And sometimes we do things that we wish we hadn't done. There was something that happened to me recently where I missed an important appointment. And I didn't realize it until the person called and said, hey, where were you? I was really embarrassed. And when that happened, I got all flushed inside. I started to stutter. I wasn't sure what it was that I could say or what I could do. And that's part of what happens when we're vulnerable, is we start to get this feeling inside, and telling someone that you're an addict or an alcoholic, admitting that is another form of vulnerability. How many of us like control? Come on, let's get honest. Yeah, there, look at that, what a change, yeah. One of my favorite readings says you were afraid to surrender because you didn't want to lose control. Truth is, you never had control. All you had was anxiety. I want you to think about that for a minute. What is it that we're trying to control more than anything else? Is the anxiety, the discomfort that we're finding in life. And so if we control it, maybe it'll go away. And so we try to control other people because we can't control ourselves. Many of us have this underlying feeling of despair because we think we are not enough. We're not good enough. We're not perfect enough. We're not powerful enough, or smart enough, or successful enough, or secure enough. In all of these things, what we really, really want is to be special, to be better than, or at least be enough. I remember years ago I was in a play called The Fantastics, and at one point the young girl in it starts spinning around and she says, I am special, I am special. Please, God, don't let me be normal. I mean, that's the struggle for many, many of us. But here's what I want to tell you today. You are not enough. You're more than enough. You are perfectly, perfectly imperfect. And that's just what the human condition is supposed to be all about. So each and every one of us is enough as we are. But in recovery, we can move from where we are to places that we never, ever imagined. I remember years ago, my first sermon. I was scared. I mean, I'm in front of some people. It's the first time I'm going to say this message in front of other people. It was in church early in my journey. And I was all nervous. And first, when I got up, before I even read the scripture, I started to preach, and my supervisor said, well, it would help if you read the scripture first. And that really got me going. And then afterwards, when I walked out, and we stand at the end, and all the people come out, and you hope they're going to say, good sermon, good sermon. The first guy came out, and he said, that was a good message. And I said, well, I guess that's better than say it sucked. See, there's always this fear of being judged. But think about some of your experiences here at Caron. Being here at Caron may be the closest you've gotten to honesty and vulnerability. I have the pleasure on Thursday nights of doing this New Life Recovery. Some of you come to that group. Some of you others might want to come to that group. We're taking 12 steps and a very inclusive Christianity, and we put them together, and we have wonderful conversations about it. But one of the things that we talk about is how many of you have grown closer to others because of their willingness to open up. I mean, think about it. You're sitting there in the group and somebody starts to share something that they probably never told anybody else in their whole life. And when you hear it, you don't look at them and say, damn, that person's crazy. No, we look at that person and we start to feel closer to them because they're able to share with us some of the things. And that opens it up for us to be able to share some of our things. And the next thing you know, some of you will have lifelong friends, deeper friends than you've had in all of your life as a result of your time here. It's absolutely wonderful. But we used to live a life of lies and deceit and secrets. How many of you have told something to someone that you swore you would take to the grave with you? Yeah. And you told somebody, and what was it like? Was it, in the end, did you feel worse, or did you finally feel relief? Yeah, see, we get a relief when we get honest. It does feel scary and exciting and sometimes terrifying, but it's also hopeful. One of my favorite writers is this guy named Frederick Buechner, recently passed away. And he says, we all have the same secret. What we want more than anything else in life is to be absolutely fully known in all of our humanness. But what we fear more than anything else is to be fully known in all our humanness. And we live in that tension in between. Of I really wish somebody knew everything about me, and I am so scared that somebody knew everything about me. But if we don't get honest about our secrets, we run the risk of losing our identity. And in this world today, we slowly become the highly edited version of what others wanted us to be. I mean, I don't know about you, but I spent the majority of my life trying to be what it was other people wanted me to be. It took me until very late in life before I got honest and said, this is what I want to be, not what everybody else wanted. And when we look at things like on Facebook, everybody shows the best of what they are. It's a wonderful medium, but most of us don't put down all the struggles we have. So you look at other people's lives and you compare it to your life and you don't measure up, but the reality is they're not telling you the stuff that's inside. All you're seeing is the good stuff from the outside. So a few years ago, one of my interns told me that she struggled with vulnerability. She talked for a while about how it affected her life, and she said she likes to know everything about another person, but she never gives of herself. And she started to notice, as we talked about that friends that she would meet, that she got to know about, eventually drifted away. And she was able to get this insight that the reason they left was because she never gave them anything. So I said to her, I got an assignment for you. See, I'm allowed to give assignments as the supervisor. I said, I got an assignment for you. She said, what's that? I said, here's 5 books from Brene Brown. Make a small group and let's change people's lives. We're still doing that small group 5 years later. It also changed her life. So I wonder, what do you do when you feel emotionally exposed? Do you get scared? If you get scared, you probably get angry, because angry is a secondary emotion. Underneath it is fear or hurt or something like that. So the way we express that is we express it in anger, because it's hard for us to say, I feel hurt. Yeah, so what happens is we end up turning inward. Sure, many of you either are shut down people or you were exposed to shut down people, where when things start to get a little too tense, you just shut down. I don't want to talk about it. Walk away. Just don't want to deal with it. But vulnerability, what it isn't, is what I call the big dump. I'm sure some of you have heard oversharing. This thing where we have no boundaries and somebody just kind of, and it all comes out. Yeah. And I remember, this was really a sad moment. My mother's been gone for over 20 years, but I remember early in my recovery sitting at her table and kind of spilling all of that stuff on her. It was way too much information. It was really about freeing me and putting the burden on her, and I can tell you that 25 years later, I still feel regret and sorrow for what I laid on my mother at that time. It was my misguided attempt at freeing myself. So my point in all of this is that honesty, rigorous honesty, is our only way to recovery. That the secrets that we carry deep inside of ourselves need to be shared with somebody else. Doesn't have to be shared with everybody. Our 5th step tells us God, ourselves, and another human being. So we don't need to go around telling every single person our whole story, but we need to tell it to someone. And I want to suggest that you need to tell it to one someone, because the other way of doing that is we can tell you a little bit and I can tell you a little bit, and that way nobody really knows the whole me, and somehow that feels safer. But what's really freeing is when we're able to tell everybody. So may you discover the secrets that you've been hiding for way too long. May you get honest and share those secrets with others, even at the risk of vulnerability. And may you know the truth, and may it set you free. Amen.
Amen.